If you want compact, fun, affordable, and efficient with a little bit of added practicality, you cannot overlook Mini. I am here with the 2025 Mini Cooper S two-door hardtop. This is all new for 2025. They are entering the 5th generation this year, just about 22 years after this car debuted in the US. As always, I'm going to go through this thing from the outside in, talk about what it's been like to live with for the past week. Let's go ahead, take a look. First choice you got to make when you're speccing your Mini is the powertrain. So there is a base, there is an S, and then there is a JCW, the John Cooper Works, which is going to be coming production starting in November. That's going to hit sometime next year, and that is essentially going to determine what your powertrain is. Last year, the base got you a turbocharged 3-cylinder, and then the John Cooper Works and the S were both turbocharged 4-cylinders. This year, they are all turbocharged 4-cylinders. This is going to be a 2-liter 4-cylinder in the S trim here, just like it was last year, but this one ekes out a little bit more power. This is an updated version of this engine. It pumps out 201 horsepower and 221 pound-feet of torque, so a pretty decent bump from last year. And while new tech has added some weight to this car, it's still right around 3,000 pounds, so still pretty light, still pretty mini here. And for fuel efficiency, usually when you're looking for that fun car, you're not thinking a lot about fuel efficiency, but this thing has to do fun and practicality, and it's got to do your daily drive, most likely if you're buying a hatchback like this, a hot hatch. And the fuel efficiency, I'm getting about 32 combined here, and I have not really been going easy on it at all. It is rated at 28 city, 39 highway, so pretty solid fuel economy here for something that is a little bit more performance oriented, a little bit more fun leaning. And your only drivetrain option for this is going to be front wheel drive. There is no all-wheel drive as it stands. Maybe that'll be coming with the John Cooper Works. We'll have to wait and see with that one, but as of right now, the base and the S only come in front wheel drive. My first concern with a car like this being redesigned is that the car is just going to get bigger. Cars keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger every generation, and the whole ethos of a Mini is to be small, light, chuckable, and they have kept this car about the same size, which I love to see. So overall, about 152.5 inches, and the width is about 0.7 inches wider. So really overall, we're looking at about the same size as the outgoing F56 on this F66 Mini. We are a little bit longer on the wheelbase than a Miata though. This one is about 98 inches on the wheelbase, which is slightly more than like a Supra and a Z4. So still a pretty short wheelbase, great for chucking this thing around, throwing it through some corners. But look how far to the edges these wheels are, so that will help with the stability quite a bit since the wheels are so far out to the edges. Now, it is important to note that these particular wheels, these tuning fork looking wheels and the John Cooper Works logo and the John Cooper Works brake calipers here, those are not actually available currently in the US. So there is so when you go to spec your Mini, you choose your powertrain, that's your base, your S, your John Cooper Works. You choose your features, essentially your trim package, which is going to be your Signature Plus, and your Iconic, and then you choose a style pack, which right now is a classic and a favored. But if you're in the 4-door, you also get a John Cooper Works style pack that you can add to the S, or if you are anywhere else in the world other than the US right now, then you can also option this John Cooper Works style pack. So as of right now, these wheels not available at all, but the John Cooper Works logo in the middle and the brakes are going to, that style there is going to be available on the 4-door here. Luckily, you can still option 18s. You're going to be seeing on 17s with all seasons as standard, and there are a bunch of different options for the 17s. I love how many wheel choices Mini gives you, and then you still get the option of 18s with summers. Now, you can still do this like black roof with the black mirror caps, or a white roof with the white mirror caps, or there's a two-tone roof that also gets the black mirror caps, or you could just go body colored on the roof as well, and then you still get the black mirror caps. So a couple of different options for the styling here if you want to switch up the colors a little bit. But I love this black roof with the white. I'm not a big fan of white cars unless they have a lot of black trim, and this one really looks good with all this extra black trim. Note this spoiler on the back. Actually here, this is also part of that John Cooper Works styling pack, so you're not going to be able to get that unless you go aftermarket if you're here in the US. Got some pretty decent tech here going on. You do get the touch to lock here on the outside, as well as the touch to unlock here on the inside of the driver's side door, so keyless access. But you don't get that on the passenger side for some reason. I think that's a little bit odd that they only put it on the driver's side, but it is nice to make it nice and easy and convenient to get in and out. Note that these also will power fold. These mirrors, they power fold automatically when you lock up the car. You got your turn signal in here. These are heated. You can option auto dimming. You got blind spot monitoring in there, and you've even got the camera down here, because this one does have the full 360 view on it. For the front end here, the big changes are going to be in the headlights here. We still have this sort of bubble headlight going on, but we got the two lines across for your LED daytime running lights. Those are going to be new. And then you've got full LED lights going on as well. And these are even cornering lights. I love that feature. I love that more and more cars are starting to get that, and that is a standard feature on here. Absolutely love to see that. Now you got the eyeshadow around the edges on both sides. That's going to be part of the John Cooper Works styling pack, which again you can't get in the US currently, or you can get that as part of the classic style. The classic style also gets you the black around the grille here, and this octagonal shape for the grille is new here for 2025. But note that the black all through here, this grille design generally is only part of that John Cooper Works styling pack. So what you're going to see is paint matched across the center here for either the favored or the classic style. Then these brake ducts on the side are not going to be there for the US specs, but these are fake anyway. There's not actually any venting going on there, but you are still going to get the sensors across the front, the parking sensors going across the front. You still get the front camera there as well, since this one does have that full 360. You got the radar sensor in here. This is apparently the smallest radar sensor in the BMW Group's portfolio, so you know, a little bit of trivia there, I guess. Your lower front clip here is going to look a little bit different as well. I'll give you some side-by-sides, show you what the 2025 looks like in both classic and favored style, as well as how it looks against the 2024, since this one I do like how this new front end looks, and I like the black with the white here. For the back end, the first big update I noticed was these taillights. I mean, they're right there in your face. They kind of look like spider eyes to me. That little spider down there agrees with me, I think. You can actually change the design of these taillights through the settings in the infotainment, so you haven't totally lost that sort of nod to the British heritage there. Kind of controversial. I think that's a pretty big change. I'm curious to see how people are split. Let me know if you like these or if you like the Union Jack ones better. I think I kind of lean towards the Union Jack just because it has that sort of nod to the British heritage. But overall, you know, nice clean looking back end. Again, this spoiler is not going to be there on the US spec cars, at least not unless you go aftermarket, or if you go with the John Cooper Works style pack on the 4-door option. And then this diffuser down here, also not going to see that. It is still going to be black. There's like a big black piece that goes across here. It's just not going to look like this. And then you've got parking sensors across the back. You do have a camera back here as well. And then your exhaust is actually pointing straight down. I guess that's so you can get some extra lift in the corners if you just really jab the throttle. That's not real science, but overall, nice clean looking back end. I do like how this thing looks. And of course, we've got a rear wiper back here. Always love to see that. And then this pops open into a little mini bit of space back here, about 9 cubic feet on the spec sheet, but it's pretty tight back here. But with it being a hatchback, you can drop these seats down and get quite a bit more space. Honestly, if I was buying a car like this, I probably wouldn't use the back seats all that much anyway, unless it was for a pet like a big dog or something, and then you just drop the seats down, just leave them down all the time with the dogs spread out back here. And then underneath here, you do get a little bit more storage. There's another little compartment down here, so if you need a little bit more space, it does provide that. Unfortunately, this one does not have a spare. And then you've got access over here to your lights, as well as over here you can get to those lights back there. And then you've got grab handles here, so you don't have to grab the paint when you're closing this thing up. Now, interestingly, we've got this tiny car with a massive key fob This key fob is huge for some reason, but this one does have your sort of standard stuff, your lock, your unlock, your panic, and then it's got a trunk button, but all that does is sort of pop it a little bit. It doesn't actually open it all the way, it'll just pop it, and then you still got to pull it up. And then there's no kick to open, or like stand here and look like an idiot and wait for a couple of seconds for it to open. You'll be standing there all day. It does not open automatically. There is no power tailgate option at all. But this one does have the most important thing on here is it does have remote start right here on the key fob. I love it when it's on the key fob. You don't have to dig through the app to get to remote start. And it is just hit that little mini logo, which is also your lock button. With mini being mini, they do things a little bit differently. You got to tap that 3 times instead of 2, and then it'll start right up. So Mini has gone for minimalism. That is what they have put on the Minroni. And since puns are the highest form of comedy, I'm all in. I'm sold on this car already. But they've updated like the dash. They've updated a lot of the materials here. They've got these like recycled materials up here. There's this funky little band going on. Interesting little designs up there. You can project different sort of ambient lighting stuff, little projections onto this dash as well. They've kept this sort of like funky and interesting vibe that Mini always has. They've just like sort of gotten rid of a lot of the clutter. And part of getting rid of all of the clutter, unfortunately, means that everything is going into the infotainment. This is a trend in automotive in general. It's kind of frustrating, but that is where everything goes when you get rid of physical control. So your HVAC, no longer down here anymore, and you don't get the fun like animations around the outside anymore when you adjust your volume and your HVAC. And then your HVAC is now just right here. It is at least always accessible, but now it is a couple of clicks. And so it's at least always accessible. Your seats are always accessible, as well as your steering wheel here, since you do actually have heated seats and heated steering wheel standard. And then through here, there's a lot in here. You've got your sort of main menu items here, including your personal assistant here. This is Spike. This little dog here is Spike. And your fuel economy, your like driver's assist stuff. And then you've got this other menu with like tons of stuff in here. If you want to change your driver's assist features, if you want to change different driving settings, your interior lighting, your outside lighting, you can change all kinds of stuff through here. There, like, look, this menu just keeps going and going and going and going. There's even games in here. They put some games in here. The big thing they've added here for 2025 finally is this Android Auto icon you see here. So they had Apple CarPlay. Now finally for 2025, Android Auto is available and it's wireless, but the connectivity is not awesome. It drops so often. You know, I've got like an hour commute to work and it drops like 10 or 15 times on my way to work. There's all kinds of different driving displays in here as well, and your speedometer if you want. So notice minimalistic. There's nothing. They even got rid of the little piece that used to be right here up above the steering wheel for your like your tach and a little bit of extra driving information like your gauge cluster. So if you want a speedometer, then you actually have to go into here, go into your vehicle settings and click speedometer. And now you have a speedometer, which is a little odd. And then your tach here is like 0 to 100. It's just like a percentage. So you don't have a real tach. Fine, I guess, for daily driving. But then it's nice when you do go up into this go-kart mode, then you do get your tach back. And that one does actually show you your true RPM. And note when you change this, you also get your tach in here because this heads-up display is going to be standard, which is, you know, it's just showing your power, your fuel economy, and then your current speed, your speed limit. It'll show you your navigation if you've got your nav going. It'll show you driver's assist features if you've got those enabled. So in here, the theme mode, I noted I changed the theme mode. These are, well, they're called experiences. And he's calling these experiences, and it's a little bit confusing when you first get in, because you get in, you go, this timeless mode is like a throwback. Okay, cool. What did that actually do? Well, turns out the timeless mode really just changes the theme of infotainment. It changes some of like the ambient light stuff that comes down onto the dashboard. If it were dark, if it were nighttime, you would see the ambient lighting there. And then there's a balance mode, which does exactly the same thing. There's a vivid mode, does the same kind of thing, just sort of changes the theme. But then when you go into green mode, so this one actually does change your driving dynamics. This one is like sort of an eco mode, and it even gives you this little bonus range down here. It tells you how much extra range you're getting by being in eco mode. And if you go into go-kart mode, this is like your sport mode or your sport plus, and actually you can go in here and hit the settings and update what your drivetrain's doing, your driving dynamics, your steering behavior. So some of these are actual driving modes and some of these are just different themes, but you're essentially just in normal driving mode. It was a little bit confusing, a little bit of a learning curve, but the rest of this is sort of pretty basic stuff that you typically find. And if you are connected, if you do have the Mini Connect app on your phone, you can also do like a personalized mode in here. So I noted all these different experiences. And all this switch gear down here has been updated. Mini has always done funky switches down here for starting your car up, and now that your transmission is just this little nub over here, it just takes a second to get used to. Like, you get used to it pretty quickly. Updated buttons here, so no more of those like big glossy button and like multi-function button things. Now they're individual buttons, but you do have this sort of like weird scroller thing that's also a toggle. A little bit odd, but you do get used to all of that. This fabric down here is kind of a cool little touch. I wouldn't play with it too much like I'm doing right now. Otherwise it'll probably get worn out, but since that's not really a touch point, it shouldn't really get worn out if you buy this car. Like the recycled materials up here and the little strap going on, the little manual transmission kind of funky vents going on. Cup holders down here out of the way. You do have a wireless charger if you get the comfort package, and big problem with wireless chargers is the phone like will slide off of it. This thing's not going anywhere. You got big plastic piece with a spring on it, and then a strap. Just need some ratchet straps. Really make sure it's, down and not moving anywhere. Upper specs get you this little box instead of a regular console. You get this little box. You do have the Harman Kardon sound system in this one. This is the upgraded sound system. If you get the iconic pack here, sounds pretty decent. Definitely a step up from the base. We do have a pano sunroof. This is going to be standard. Actually, even when you're on the base trim, I'm really surprised to see that is a new standard feature. Pretty cool if you're somebody that's into the sunroof, especially since it goes into the back. There's the dual pane, so the kids in the back even get a little bit of extra light. I was a little surprised that there wasn't a sunroof delete, but I figure that John Cooper Works will probably have a sunroof delete option if you're like taking it auto-crossing a lot and you just don't want the sunroof. There's a camera up here. This is not standard, but here in the iconic, it has the interior camera. And the big thing is, if somebody breaks into your car, if the anti-theft system goes off, then this will automatically start recording. So if somebody does try to break into your car, then you'll have them on camera. So that's kind of interesting, at least. These seats are great, actually. They're pretty comfortable. I wish they were bolstered just a little bit more aggressively just for those spirited drives, but honestly, for the daily drive, this is pretty good. These are power adjustable here in the upper spec. The base is the manual seats, but then once you go into the Signature Plus, then you can option these seats, or if you get the iconic, then you get these seats standard, where they're power adjustable, and there's power adjustable lumbar support, and there's even a massage function, and with 4 different settings. So that's pretty great. As I mentioned, those are going to be heated standard. There is no ventilation at all, no ventilation period on the Mini, unfortunately, of this 2-door hardtop. Back seats are mostly for show. You can get kids back there in a pinch. I'm 5'7". My wife is 5'4", and both of us got in the car with the seats shoved way up. I was a little bit too close for comfort. My wife had her knees like into the dash here, and my kids were like, their feet were basically touching the backs of the seats. They're in forward-facing seats. They're 5 and 7 years old. That gives you an idea of their size. And so that was very uncomfortable getting the whole family in here. So I would probably save the back for throwing luggage back there, maybe putting pets back there, you can put people back there in a pinch, or if you don't have a passenger, I guess you could shove this seat all the way up and just put somebody on that passenger side in the back. But generally speaking, those back seats are really mostly just for show. About 30.8 inches, I believe, is the measurement on those, or you're in like 2+2 territory. This basically is a 2+2. Generally speaking, just minimalist material, minimalism. I like the look of this interior. I like the feel of the interior. I'm a big fan. The back seats, just like if you actually need the back seats, you would want to go into the 4-door, but if you don't, then, and you only need them in a pinch, then that's great. I just wish that everything wasn't so buried in here. It's just a little bit of a learning curve, and it's a couple of clicks to get to everything, it seems like. And some of the connectivity issues are a little frustrating, but generally speaking, pretty nice interior, lots of new tech, very comfortable, and just still has that sort of like funky, interesting mini feel to it. So as always, I've been driving this car around for the last week, daily driving, as well as getting some good spirited drives in, as YouTube is not my day job. So, I'm using this car for normal car stuff that you would probably do if you bought this car. And, it has this great, like, sort of classic mini feel. It's just fun and chuckable, and it doesn't take itself so seriously. Absolutely love driving this thing around. It really shines most on these sort of snaky roads, not the like super tight technical twisty roads, these sort of like just snaky roads we have in Connecticut. Here behind my house is a perfect road for it. The steering and the body control really give you a lot of that BMW feel, which I guess isn't super surprising because BMW owns Mini and it's got BMW powertrain. It's just if you've been in like a 2 Series, then you're probably fairly familiar with this kind of feeling. Obviously, with this being front wheel drive, if you're coming from like a rear wheel drive BMW, then it's going to be a little bit different coming out of those corners. What I mean by the similarities is like the feeling in the steering and then the body control as well. So the steering is very buttoned up. It's very tight. It's very direct. It's not exactly the most communicative. It's not like you're feeling everything the wheels are doing through the steering wheel, and that's sort of like a BMW thing. But it is very tight, and it's very buttoned up, and it's very confident, definitely, in the steering here. And then the body control, like it rolls just a little bit, just enough to make you feel like you're doing something, but not so much that you feel like you're going to lose it. And it's just a very confident feel, and it's very like comfortable. And it's just such a blast to throw through these like sneaky corners. But then once you get into like the super tighter technical stuff, like if you get over 90-degree turns, then you can start losing the back end pretty easily. You can start doing some power slides. Now it's not gonna like kick way out on you if you don't want to, but you'll definitely get some squeal and you'll definitely lose a little bit of traction there, especially on these P0s. I wonder if this thing would be different on like some Pilot Sport 4S's or something. But it's a lot of torque through the front wheels, and you can light up the tires, you can get the back end to kick out on those tight turns, and that is just the fun part. Like if you want a buttoned up hot hatch, something that's going to be super composed and pretty much do exactly what you want it to do, go get a Civic Type R. But if you want something that doesn't take itself so seriously, because it's this front wheel drive sort of torque steery kind of it's so easy to light up the tires and just fun to throw around, that's when you buy the Mini. Like it's Mini, and I feel like the Fiesta ST is like the spiritual brother of this car. Just like that front wheel drive, like fun, doesn't take itself too seriously, and just like you love it even with the torque steer. Not only do you love it with the torque steer, but you love it like because of the torque steer, because you can light up the tires and just throw it around and just have some fun with it, and you can fight with it a little bit And I don't know, to me, that's like the most fun part. And then it is plenty quick. Then once you do get off the line there, if you are on a straight road, yeah, 200 horsepower isn't a ton nowadays, but it really is. It's plenty. This thing only weighs 3,000 pounds. And then when you find a straight here, it can get out of its own way totally fine. There's a little bit of throttle lag and a little bit of turbo lag, definitely, which I'm a little bit surprised about the turbo lag, actually. Obviously, everything with a turbo has turbo lag of some kind. It's just whether or not the automaker can hide it or, sort of mitigate it. But with BMW, a lot of the BMW cars are very good at hiding the turbo lag. This one here, they have not hit it at all. Like, you put your foot into it, you gotta wait for those turbos to spool. You gotta wait till you get up into like a little bit higher in the rev range, and then it will give you the big shove. Once you're in the boost, it moves out of its way totally fine. But again, that's like part of the character of the car here. The turbo lag, the torque steer, the fact that you can slide it all over the place. That's just like the fun part of driving around in a Mini. The one thing about the Spirited drives that's not awesome here is you don't normally have these paddle shifters. So these paddle shifters, as I mentioned, are part of the John Cooper style pack. So unfortunately, these are not standard. You can't even option paddle shifters, and there's no manual transmission anymore. So if you want control of the gears, kind of SOL here. You can put the transmission here down into S mode, which is like a sport mode, which will make it more aggressive. You can put it into go-kart mode, turn the drivetrain settings all the way up, and it'll make it more aggressive, but you don't get that kind of control that you would get with these paddle shifters. Just not having that control, even with a snappy dual clutch with something you can set the aggression level of the transmission, is just, you kind of need paddle shifters in a car like this. So I wouldn't be surprised if they add those in the future. It sounds like they're already evaluating that over at Mini. So now with this thing being a little more sporty oriented, plus the fact that it has a short wheelbase, the suspension, it's not awesome if you don't have great roads. Like this road I'm on now, totally fine and comfortable. But once I get out onto the main roads here, it's like a lot more bumpy, a lot rougher. If you're not like an enthusiast, if you're not used to taking a little bit of extra roughness in order to get the better driving dynamics, it might come as a bit of a shock. But for me, it's definitely worth the trade-off here. Get a little bit more of that bumpiness. It's not like it's shooting pain through my back or anything, but it's definitely a rough riding experience. And this one even has the dynamic damping. So if you're on the fence about getting that, I would definitely get it. But just note that it's still going to be fairly rough. It's still short wheelbase, banana peel tires, and sport tuned suspension here. Now with the go-kart mode here, you can set it to turn off your traction control. You can set it to basically like ring out your gears and pump in a bunch of sound, and your steering gets a little bit heavier. Well, the steering difference isn't really all that noticeable, honestly. But the pumped in sound, again, that's like part of the fun. Like, no, usually I don't love that sort of pumped in sound thing, but it's a Mini, like cranking up the sound in go-kart mode, like it doesn't take itself so seriously, and I kind of love that. It's part of the personality, it's part of the quirkiness. So it just makes it like a little bit more, I think it actually adds to the experience. It adds to the fun in this car here. In addition to the Spirited driving, of course, it's a hot hatch. It's got to be able to do the daily drive style as well. And it does a pretty good job. Other than that suspension that I mentioned, everything else really is nice to daily drive. And even the suspension, it's not going to like kill you unless you have really bad back problems already. But the seats are great. I do wish they were a little bit more bolstered for the Spirited drives, but for the daily drive, the seats are great. It has that massage function, which is something I really didn't expect, and they're heated. Plus the visibility all around is very good here. It is a hatchback. It's got that nice blocky back end, nice big wide windows here, especially being a two-door, which means that these windows are not wide, they're very long windows, and the B pillar is pretty far back there. It doesn't really block your view. It has great visibility all around. And then there's all these extra driver's assist features, which, I know a lot of people hate this stuff, but honestly, this one does a very good job of staying out of the way, and you can always tone stuff down in the infotainment system here, the IPA system here, if you would like. But honestly, like the blind spot monitoring, it's not like getting in the way all the time. It's not beeping at me all the time or anything, doing a lot of false positives or anything like that. I'm not having like front collision warning going off. Really, I haven't had that go off at all. It stays out of the way. Plus, it's got adaptive cruise all the way down to stop and go, since this one's loaded out with all the features. But the adaptive cruise works great as well. Generally speaking, great. It's fun. It doesn't take itself so seriously. Like, you can spin the tires, you can flip the tail out. You can really just have fun in this thing. And then as long as the suspension doesn't bug you too much, it's really easy to daily drive as well. It's just a fun experience overall. It's just a fun driving experience. At the end of the day, the Mini two-door hardtop has really maintained its mininess. It's still like fun and quirky, and it doesn't take itself too seriously and throw it down a back road. It's got that go-kart feel. There's torque steer, there's some turbo lag, and you can spin the tires if you really want to get into it. But that's part of the fun, and it's just, again, it doesn't take itself too seriously. You can throw it around a lot. Now, you do get some new tech, new features, but they've kept the size down, they've kept the weight down. It's still only about 3,000 pounds, and even with all the extra driver's assist features, you get the heated seats as well, the heated steering wheel, you get these nice massage seats, which I didn't expect here, sunroof, all that stuff, and it really didn't add too much weight. They've simplified the styling a little bit, kept it a little bit more subdued, but still kept that mini look to it. It's definitely still very easily recognizable as a Mini. It's just a fun car. There's some issues with the infotainment. I wish everything wasn't buried in the infotainment. A few more physical controls would be nice. And those paddle shifters, I really hope they add the paddle shifters to the regular Mini two-door hardtop. While they added Android Auto, the connectivity wasn't great, but I'm glad that they added it. So, pluses and minuses. Hopefully they work out the connectivity issues, but just generally speaking, there's definitely a lot more positive than negative, and they've definitely kept the mininess to it. They've kept the sort of ethos of the car here. And it's just a fun car to live with. And for the price point, you're looking at 32 grand for a starting point for the S. This one loaded out is right around 40 grand. That's a pretty solid price when the average new car is like 48, 50 grand nowadays. So for everything you get, definitely a pretty solid price. I would definitely check this out if you're looking for something fun and quirky and interesting, and just when you like to throw down some twisty roads every once in a while, but you can also live with daily as long as you don't need those back seats for people on a daily basis. Let me know what you think down in the comments. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.